She who holds the receipts controls the narrative. In 2002, in what is a legendary Diane Sawyer interview with Whitney Houston uttered a phrase that we could never have imagined would have gone on to hold the importance it does today.
No way. No way.
That phrase?
I want to see the receipts. I want to see the receipts.
Show me the receipts. Why did Whitney Houston say it? She was accused of having a rather expensive drug habit.
We don't do crack. We don't do that. Crack is whack.
And so she said, prove it. Where are these receipts?
I want to see the receipts.
And now receipts have become one of the most powerful weapons in anyone's arsenal. Receipts have become something so powerful and so important that we find ourselves constantly screen recording things, screenshotting things that we shouldn't even feel the need to do.
It's like, hi Kanan, I have sent you a photo. Please look at the photo and call me back. Regards, Colonel Charanjit. And this would have been fine, but the photo that he sent me is of my mother, who is holding an iPad, on which is the actual photo that they wanted to send. By the way, these are two devices that can take pictures on their own, being used to cancel each other out.
When I was in hospital, the staff were being so abusive to me that I literally had my partner on the phone and he recorded what he could hear of this entire conversation in case we needed proof of what was going on in that hospital. And while it might not all be about that, and a lot of it might just seem like a bit of YouTube drama, I don't think it's far-fetched or strange in the slightest to say, you know what? Yeah, receipts really have a lot of power. So today I want to have a look at that. I want to explore this culture of receipts that we have going on. I have some very specific examples that we are going to talk through, and I'm going to share my own personal experiences with receipts, with a certain situation that I had, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions on what receipts are doing to our modern society. Cool, I hope, as always. Before we do get into the video, as always, please do hit the thumbs up button if you are enjoying this video, because it really helps to push me up there as a small channel especially. Comment anything you want to comment below, comment like a live stream, that would be great, or wait until the end and let me know your thoughts then. And also don't forget to subscribe if you are enjoying this and want to see more of this type of content. Cool. Oh, and social medias too. I finally TikToked. I did the TikToking. I feel proud. Go follow me on TikTok, please. Show me some love. Whoa. I'm blind. Hi guys. Welcome back to my channel. Hi, it's nice to see you all. I hope you're having an awesome day and you're good. Cool. If this is your first time here, hello, hi. I am Kez, and here's some unicorns. Together, that makes Kez and unicorns. We're still going with this bit, are we? Yes! Apparently so. You sit down over here, honey. Oh. Today's featured unicorn is Poppy.
I'm a unicorn!
She's actually a pegacorn.
I'm a unicorn!
Isn't she cute? I love her. And This is one of my favourite wigs. It's from Rockstar Wigs. There is a Rockstar Wigs walkthrough video if you want to watch that for something a bit different. I'll link it up here. This is it's in my top 3 favourite wigs, and coming from someone who has about 80 wigs, that's saying something. Anyway, I hope you guys are having an awesome December. I hope I get this out in December. Okay, so yes, today I want to talk about receipts. Because there's a whole thing, I have a whole thing with receipts. And I want to start by taking it away from YouTube for a moment. So, I don't know if you know about this, but there are people outright denying that the Holocaust ever happened. I'm not joking. This isn't like, what religion do you believe in? What faith do you believe in? This is history, and I've been to Auschwitz. It was... So, for people to be out here being like, oh, I don't believe the Holocaust ever happened, it's all a load of nonsense, is insane to me. Next level insane to me. And the fact that it happened not even a century ago, and already there are people trying to denounce it or deny it. I mean, doesn't it make you question everything we know about history? Is any of it true? Who tells the story? Who records the story? Usually it's the people that win, or the rich people, or the super poor people. What about the people in the middle? What about the people who don't win? What about the other side of the story that we never hear about? And this is why, to me, receipts are so important. I opened the video with talking about when I was in hospital, and I mean, it has got to a point where many times if I'm on the phone to a company, I'll record it in fear that they're going to be rude to me, or I'll take screenshot after screenshot after screenshot of something that I shouldn't even need to consider doing that for, because I'm always so worried. And so I mentioned a situation that I had, which kind of led me to wanting to talk about this. So I got into a situation, and I kind of ended up on the wrong side of a YouTuber they had at the time around 30,000 subscribers. I had about 30 subscribers at this point. And I found myself having a conversation with them, and the situation went bad, and they basically said, you know, that they were going to hold these conversations that we'd had in their DMs over me. If I did something that they didn't like, they were going to share these DMs with everyone. And it even got to a point where I saw a tweet of them saying that they were happy to give all this information to people. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, this conversation was incredibly personal. There was a lot of personal stuff. And in hindsight, we were both bitches in that situation. We both did wrong. And, you know, I can accept that I did do wrong in that situation, and I apologized. But at the same time, trying to act like you're going to hold a private conversation that we had over me is legit kind of terrifying.
Are a very particular set of skills. I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill you.
Because let's be honest, okay, the situation wasn't a black or white situation. It wasn't the type of situation where it's very easy to say who was right and who was wrong. But if you've got someone with 30,000 subscribers and they want to tell the story with the receipts that they have, knowing, as a side note, that in Twitter you can delete your own messages, so the whole context completely changes. We'll get on to that later. They wanted to spread the word about me being a terrible human being, an emotionally manipulative human being, or anything like that. It doesn't matter who was right or wrong, because they had 30,000 people that would have gone to bat for them. that would have said, yes, you were right, because they're hearing your side of the story.
SNS とはのんきなもんですな。SNS は遊びじゃねえんだ。
And we see this a lot in tea culture, especially I think the whole Gabby Hanna, Jessie Smiles, Alex James, you hear everyone's different sides. And I think it's always important to realize that whoever is providing you with the receipts, whoever is the first person to break that story or to share their opinion or to share their story, they are sharing their version of events. And I think often we forget that. It's a well-known thing that there are at least 3 sides to every story. There's my side, there's your side, and there's the truth. And the things that I want to discuss today, the specific examples that I want to discuss today, are for various reasons. Generally, if we look at just YouTube for a moment, I feel like I've had it happen to me, and why? Like, hey, Chris Hansen, why did you block me on Twitter? I don't know. These things just seem to happen for some reason. But I don't think we should forget that a lot of bigger YouTubers do some pretty shitty things to smaller channels because they have more of an audience. And it's not just the public things that they do. It's not just, Katie Morton getting smaller channels videos removed so no one knows what a terrible human being she is. It's not just people putting privacy complaints in when it's wrong or abusing the copyright system. It's YouTubers literally saying to smaller YouTubers, I've got the receipts and I'll make them public. Which leads you to think, what's the point in having private conversations anymore? It's gotten to a point where pretty much if you're going to have a conversation in DMs with someone, you might as well just not have a conversation in DMs at all because of the amount of people who will have a conversation with you and then they'll screen grab it and they'll send it to someone else and the story immediately gets twisted and no one knows what the truth is anymore. So what's the point? I've gotten to a point where pretty much if you talk to me in DMs, I'm going to say pretty much anything that I would be happy to stand by 110% because of the fear that people will just be like, oh, in fact, I actually had someone do a screen recording of a conversation and try to say that I was bad. And I mean, luckily for me, anyone that saw it basically disagreed with them and said that I didn't do anything wrong in this conversation, but they were convinced that I did, and they removed some messages from them to take my comments out of context, basically, which I just think is ridiculous. And so one of my big issues with receipts is that on the one hand, we don't trust people unless they have receipts. But on the other hand, if people use certain kinds of receipts, we think they're like trash human beings. And I think that's a really interesting thing. And I think receipts they're meant to be evidentiary. They are meant to prove something. They are supposed to show the entire context. And if you crop messages out, that context is gone. So you are completely controlling the narrative. And then the person on the other side of the narrative has to deal with a whole load of people coming at them. And what if the first person completely twisted the situation? So, and if larger YouTubers are going to hold receipts over smaller channels, how are smaller channels supposed to be able to freely create content knowing that if they create a video, this other creator is basically gonna twist a story and make the entire situation look bad? Because to be honest, the situation that I was in, I had a number of my friends read through the messages, and these are friends that I trust to tell me the truth, and they didn't understand what I really did wrong. I mean, I did have some people be like, both of you seem to have messed up a bit here, and I was like, well, yeah, it was a very emotionally heated conversation, but it doesn't really matter, because if you have a lot more subscribers or a lot more followers and a lot more influence, the person with less influence is automatically going to not be believed, or is going to have to really fight to prove the other thing.
unless the big YouTuber you're talking about is Gabby Hanna, or I don't know, the Adam McIntyre and Colleen Ballinger situation, or the Dissociated and Trisha Paytas situation, or anyone versus Blair White situation, or even the Swoop versus Glam and Gore, which we're actually going to go on to talk about in a little while. But these are YouTubers that I think they've reached a point where they're no longer seen as human beings anymore. So if you just want to gain some clout, sure, create some drama with a very, very big YouTuber, but not too big. Like, don't really try and cause drama with PewDiePie, because he's not gonna, just don't do that. But it's interesting how the dynamics play out. I actually have a video I'm working on, which is actually it's kind of about the problem with tea channels and drama channels, and I'd been kind of collecting material on this for a while, and then the Smoky Glow Angelica Old situation happened, which I thought was actually very interesting in terms of the fact that Smokey was very happy for all of the receipts to be shown, and it was Angelica who said no, which, no offense, but it kind of makes Angelica look like she's got something to hide, whether she does or not. And I can also understand that it was a DM style of conversation, so the receipts were personal DMs, which people have a different thinking and feeling about anyway, which again, we're gonna talk about that in a minute. But yeah, that situation with Smokey and Angelica, very interesting to watch play out because of the fact that they're both kind of mid-sized channels, and a lot of people were, and I think still are, pretty divided on it. I think more people fell to the side of Smoky Glow, the smaller creator, but I don't think that's anything to do with the fact that Hannah's channel is smaller. I think it's to do with the fact that, as I said, Hannah was very, very happy for the receipts to be out there. She owned her shit. She said what she thought she did was wrong. She said what she thought other people did was wrong, and she accepted all of it. And that's the kind of thing we live for. That's what we like. So I'm doing a video that stems off that, which looks at the problem with drama channels or tea channels, even though I don't think of Smoky Glow as a tea channel or a drama channel, but I guess that's par for the course. Anyway, yeah, so there's a slightly interesting dynamic when you get very small people with a very small platform versus very big channels, where what I'm about to say is kind of completely inverted, but this is more generalized. Cool. Let's go back to that Kez now, because she looks so much better than I do. Thanks.
And we see this with some people when they create a video and they talk about a conversation that they had with another YouTuber, and the way they manage to manipulate the facts make you go, well, yeah, they're clearly in the right. But then you hear the other side and you're like, so, and I think, I think that's the thing. And I think it gets harder and harder as a creator to feel safe and comfortable about creating content when you know that there are people that could very easily turn around and try and denounce you as some evil being, when, let's be honest, everyone's human, everyone makes mistakes. But on that note, that's kind of my situation. I find as well that friendships, online friendships especially, are increasingly difficult because, as I said, you could be having a conversation with someone in DMs and they could be agreeing with you or whatever, and then taking screen grabs and sending it to someone else and twisting the narrative completely. And that's kind of awful. And that means that being able to feel you can fully trust anyone you meet online is really increasingly difficult, and especially for me, as someone that struggles trusting people anyway. I have this tendency to ignore that I struggle trusting people, and I just trust them, and I say I will trust you until you give me a reason to not trust you, and that tends to get me into a lot of trouble. And it sucks, really, it sucks. And I think the influence that receipts have is often, we don't often think about it in this kind of way. We just kind of say, like, your girl bought the receipts, or they didn't have receipts, so I don't believe them. But there are some creators who don't provide receipts, and we do believe them. And I don't really think we sit down ever and actually have, like, assessed what receipts are doing to us as a society, the way we communicate now, the fear of your conversations being manipulated, the fear that some people will just completely Photoshop, completely fake receipts, shove them online, and people believe them. And it's really hard to prove if you didn't do that, because there's not like a history of everything that show you. How do you prove that you didn't do something? Essentially, I don't know how you do that. So I think it's a really interesting subject. So today we're going to be talking about Tati Westbrook, both from My Sister and Breaking My Silence, and I'll be mentioning a little bit about James Charles and that situation. Then we're going to talk a little bit about Swoop and Mikey, aka Glam and Gore, and then finally we're going to talk about a Gabby Hanna, a couple of Gabby Hanna situations actually. So we're going to talk about Gabby Hanna and Hello Leash, and then we're going to talk about a situation that happened recently with Rachel Oates and Dear Mr. Atheist, which kind of involves Gabby as well. So I'll put the time codes in the description box. Cool. Okay, so I find the situation with Tati Westbrook to be, oh gosh, so much hair. I find the situation with Tati Westbrook to be incredibly interesting because, as I said, generally we want receipts. We want you to prove what you're saying to us. So we want to see receipts, which I think is fair, you know, in a courtroom or in legal matters. Police have to provide evidence, and that's basically what receipts are. So I think it makes sense. But when Tati Westbrook did her By Sister video, she didn't show any receipts. And in her Breaking My Silence video, did she show receipts? She did not. She did not show those receipts. Why did we believe her? Why? Why did we believe her? Why did we believe everything that Tati Westbrook said? And actually, Smokey Glow did a very good video on the evolution of Tati Westbrook, and it was actually very interesting. And yes, I can take from that and say, okay, so did everyone trust Tati because she spent so long trying to cultivate this idea that she was so trustworthy? She was so genuine and real and truthful and honest that she wouldn't lie. But even so, where were the receipts? And people were bending over backwards to agree with Tati, to say, this must be true. Yeah, let's agree, and we'll go and unfollow James Charles, and James Charles will fall into a pit of despair, and it will be horrendous and awful, especially when we find out the truth. But for now, we're going to believe them, because unfortunately receipts and cancel culture seem to be completely intertwined, and I hate cancel culture, and I think cancel culture is bullying. And you can take that, you know, and throw in high school bullies, but
I to make a video with screenshots exposing my bullies. These are bullies. These are high school fucking bullies.
But it is online, socially sanctioned bullying, and it's horrible. Holding people accountable I can get by, but there are various ways to do that. And screaming and yelling at someone online to force them to take accountability isn't always the right way to do it. And as long as cancel culture keeps doing that, and as long as people keep saying, I believe this person, and I'm going to shout and scream and make sure that my voice is heard, and that this person knows that they've let me down, and that I don't agree with what they've done, and they should lose everything, I think that's always going to be a problem. And I think we kind of need to learn of a way to take accountability culture and actually run with that and focus on the idea that yes, people should be held accountable, but as I said, the accountability level of someone like Katie Joy Paulson or Jeffree Star versus the accountability of someone who is not mentally well, like Eugenia Cooney, is different, and situations, depending on the gravitas of that situation, there are various ways in which we could approach that. But yeah, I find it interesting that with Tati, when she spoke, she said XYZ, this happened, this happened, this happened, James is this, and this, yada yada yada, and the internet just was like, yeah, cool, we believe you. We don't need receipts. We need receipts for everyone else, but for Tati, nah, we don't need receipts. And it wasn't until James Charles came back with his video where he dropped them receipts that people realised that there was another side to the story. And in truth, James Charles shouldn't have been mass cancelled like he was. People should wait to hear both sides of the story, but equally, if you find out that someone you admire has done something that you don't agree with and that makes you feel let down, I can understand why people would have felt so strongly about it. But it wasn't until James brought the receipts that people are like, okay. For him to have to go and get the receipts, I mean, if you don't create content online, a lot of people don't really consider, for example, how long it takes to create a video. So for me, it takes me a long time because I tend to do quite a lot of research, then I film, sometimes I film multiple times, then I edit and I upload, and because my videos are long, the editing process is long, and it's a lot. And when you have to go hunting around to find receipts, takes a lot of time. It really does. And sometimes you're at a point where it's like, why do I have to provide these receipts? When Tati didn't provide receipts, and that was fine. But for everyone else, no, you have to provide receipts. Yes! And then moving on to look at Swoop and Mikey, aka Glam and Gore. That situation was very, very interesting to me. So when it came to Swoop's video, I sat and watched it, and I like Swoop a lot as a creator. I love her editing style and I really enjoy her content. And I understand why she made the video that she did. And I'm not trying to... In talking about this, I'm not really talking about the subject matter as such, as you probably noticed from the last one. I'm trying to keep this very much just to the idea of receipts. Yes! So with Swoop's video, it was one of the first times we've seen a smaller creator come forward about a bigger creator. And yes, there are certain situations where we see this happen, but it's mostly with, you know, when people come and they do speak up about certain predatory behaviors or genuinely horrendous situations. And this year, I think we've seen it more. People are less afraid to come forward and speak out about, you know, Tana Mongeau and her beliefs. Yes! I guess, the way she treats certain types of people. But Swoop's video was, I think, a sort of, oh my god, I can't believe it, moment for a lot of people, because I think Mikey has been quite a well-liked creator for, you know, as long as she's been on the platform. She's been very successful and she seems to have been pretty well liked. She doesn't seem to have got herself into much drama, so you don't really hear about her in that sense, but she seems nice. So when Swoop's video landed, it was so out of the blue. I think people were absolutely in shock that this was happening, that this creator had spent the past however many years saying things that just weren't okay. But the big problem that people had here was that Swoop used personal private messages. So there are people saying, well, it's fine because this is a bigger problem. Like, she still said what she said. And because she's an influencer, because she has a lot of power, because she has a large following, it's fine to use the personal messages because she still said what she said. And we, as her subscribers or fans or followers or whatever you want to call yourself, if you support her, deserve to know the type of person that we are supporting, because obviously on YouTube, a view equals money. As if you're on a monetized channel, obviously. But yeah, there is a big thing that we don't want to be supporting creators who are kind of trash human beings. But there were also a lot of people on the other side of it who said, no, actually, I think using private messages is a bit shady. It's a bit shady. It's not really okay. We've all had times where we might say things to our best friend when we're like having a moment. You know, we've probably all had times when we've said things to friends of ours, and maybe we wouldn't look so great if you looked up our past like year or 2 years messages to some of our closest friends. Maybe we've all said things that we don't fully stand by. I mean, it's like when you get really drunk and then you start sending messages to people, and sometimes you're literally like, what the hell happened for me to send these messages, right? So potentially you don't know the full context of these private personal messages between the two. We don't know if Mikey had something really bad happen to her one day, and that's why she responded the way she did.
This isn't to deny the fact that if you watch that video, you'll see that there is a very, very, very clear pattern of behavior between Mikey and Swoop. And I understand exactly why Swoop feels the way she does. I relate to Swoop's feelings between her and Mikey a lot. It hit home for me. So I'm not trying to kind of make out that Mikey didn't do anything wrong at all, because I think she clearly did. She clearly has said things that are microaggressive. She's clearly shown a pattern of behavior. She's clearly said things on Twitter and things like that that are not particularly friendly or inclusive. But I am trying to make this more about our attitudes towards receipts and types of receipts, more so than I'm really trying to critique these specific situations, because that would be a whole lot more. I can do that. If you want me to do that, let me know. I already have a video out that I posted after Tati's Breaking My Silence video, so you can go watch that. But yeah, so I just want to make it clear that I'm not trying to say that I think Mikey very clearly has demonstrated problematic behavior and needs to be held accountable for that 100%.
We don't know exactly what she meant in some of her tweets, like when she said about women coming into MAC and they didn't want her to help them with their makeup because they were people of colour and she's not a person of colour. And she made a tweet about it, and a lot of people see it as very racist. But just to play devil's advocate, maybe she was genuinely trying to make a point about how MAC really should hire more people of colour, because there should be people working in places like that who can really help through their lived experience, that can help people of any race with their makeup. Because if you are light skinned, like me for example, I wouldn't know what makeup to suggest to a person of colour, because I'm not a person of colour.
That makes sense to me.
But I personally, when I saw that tweet, did immediately go to, oh, so she's basically saying that she's awesome and she is absolutely qualified and good enough to provide personalized one-to-one advice to people with any skin color. And it frustrates her when people come in and say, no, I want someone with my same skin color to help me. So I was just trying to make a point about how receipts can be manipulated based on the person talking about it to suit the narrative that they want. Because let's remember, Twitter doesn't have tone indicators. I'm neurodivergent, so maybe I read it completely differently, but we don't know her true intent. And if she turned around and said, no, I was exclaiming that like this is a serious problem that MAC need to fix, we don't know. But I do personally think regardless, it came across hurtful and racist and just not okay in any way. Okay, cool.
So what if actually she had been wanting to make a statement that was arguing what we all believe is right, but it didn't come across that way and the narrative may have been twisted? Even if it wasn't Swoop's intention to twist it, we all, whenever we tell a story, everyone slightly exaggerates it or slightly twists it. Even if it is the odd, interesting word choice, stories do get twisted, which is why I say there's my side, your side, and the truth. So there's Swoop's side, there's Mikey's side, and there's the truth. As soon as that video landed, people were yelling at Mikey, demanding an apology,
Foss, do
demanding
you really
X, Y, or
want an
Z.
apology that you forced someone to make? Because I think this is a genuine problem that a lot of influencers feel pressured and forced to apologize for something that they don't actually want to apologize for. They don't think they've done anything wrong. It's like if you turn around to your best friend and you said, you fucked up, you messed up, apologize. And they said no. And then you said, well, and then every time you saw them or spoke to them, you said, apologize, apologize, apologize. Do you want that apology? Don't you want a genuine apology? Instead of, like, if you force someone to make an apology, it's not really gonna mean anything.
And number one, she should really be given time to reflect and make a video and apologize. But we were only hearing Swoop's perspective on everything. And yes, again, some of the things, context isn't necessarily needed. And you still said what you said. But generally, context is kind of important in conversations. Yes! And think about tone. I am a really, really sarcastic person. I self-deprecate a lot, but that's a mental health thing, I think. I think it's a coping mechanism. I have very dark humor. Yes! I make jokes about things that are bizarre, things that I've personally been through. I'll make jokes about my weight, even though I have an eating disorder. I'll make jokes about death and suicide, even though I have attempted suicide myself multiple times and my mum committed suicide. It's a way for me to cope. I wouldn't really tweet some of those jokes because people that don't know me wouldn't understand at all. You don't really get a tone on Twitter. I mean, I personally think you do get a tone on Twitter, but it's your perceived tone rather than necessarily their tone, which I think is super important when we're looking at the idea of receipts and tweeting and using tweets and public information and social media posts in that way. Yes! We don't know the whole story. And so I felt it was very unfair on Swoop though, because usually people are like, yeah, receipts, receipts, receipts. But for some reason with this situation, it seemed to be the first time people were saying, don't use private messages. That's not cool. So I think that was kind of an interesting situation for people because it was the first time we've seen people not just blindly accept a truth and all of the receipts. There was critique, and some of the critique I thought was unfair, and I think it was people getting fed up of 2020. Quite frankly, it's been such a wild year. I think a lot of people are getting fed up of it. People are losing patience, and I think people are getting fed up with cancel culture and different people having, you know, their last 10 years, like Jenna Marbles had her last 10 years of content looked at, Shane Dawson did. And okay, with Shane Dawson, I did a short video on it. It's like a 10-minute video that I did. It's my shortest video on that, so I'll link it. But with Jenna Marbles, you know, people shouldn't be judged for content from like 10 years ago. Yes! To an extent, yes, but also unless you were an adult 10 years ago, you really don't know. And regardless of that, I was an adult 10 years ago and I am an adult now. And I am a different adult today than I was 10 years ago. And I probably have different humor and would make different commentary and things like that, and have learned and grown a lot in the last 10 years. So even if I was an adult 10 years ago, that doesn't mean, like, you don't get to 10 years old.
I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know I'm doing it really, really well.
You don't get to 18 years old, become a grown-up, and suddenly you're a grown-up now. It's like if someone says something when they're 17 and then the next day they turn 18, do you judge them as an adult? Or do you say, no, they were still a child when they made that really inappropriate tweet? We don't stop growing. And I saw something rather interesting. This is just...
Nope.
Let's just
Nope.
digress a little bit for a second. Until about a year ago, I didn't really have a clue who Jeffree Star was or who Shane Dawson was.
I'm sorry, are you from the past?
Or anything like that, really. I came into kind of YouTube, I guess, Chris would occasionally watch like Gifts with Sound and stuff like that, and I think we came across Greystall Plays, and I got super into Greystall Plays, and I've literally binge watched his content from his very first video, and I love him. And there is no YouTuber more wonderful than Greystall Plays. I mean, Bailey Sarian comes close, but I'm digressing from the digress. I don't know what to do with that. But I didn't know who these people were. There was a palette that I thought looked really nice. I think it was the Cremated palette, and I know there was a lot of bad, like it was a bad time to launch it considering the world. But as someone that tends to wear a lot of like pastel-y colours, I don't really have palettes for like lots of nudes or blacks and greys and things. And as someone who's just getting really into makeup in the last year or so, I was like, oh, that palette looks nice. And I think I tweeted about it. And then Tati did her Breaking My Silence video, and I found out like everything. And I was like, yeah, no, not supporting him anymore. And someone literally went into my timeline, went back in time until they found that one tweet that I tweeted about Jeffree Star and one of his palettes, and did this you thing. And I was like, yeah, that's me. That was then, this is now. Time moves forwards, we change, we grow. And around that time, I really kind of lost my shit with people, because there were people saying,
if you change your mind and you no longer agree with a certain thing, you should go back in time and delete any tweet or any social media post that you no longer agree with.
While I understand that there is a fair reason, for example, with Shane Dawson, like the amount of problematic content was alarming. But for Jenna Marbles, it seemed kind of like, why do that? Why expect people to have to defend themselves or apologize for something from 10 years ago? Because yes, the world was different 10 years ago. Humour was different. American humour and British humour, even now, are very different. When I lived in Spain, I had a lot of American friends, and I would make a lot of sarcastic remarks, and they would not understand that I was joking. And even now, I have American friends online, and I'll say things sometimes, and they won't get that I'm being sarcastic or that I'm joking. So we change and grow. We continue changing and growing and learning, which is why, as I said, like, yeah, at the start of this year, I was like,
oh, Jeffree Star Cosmetics, I want to get me some of them.
and I learned about Jeffree Star, and now I'm like, no, I do not want to support that person. That's growth. And if you want to be the type of person that says,
no, you should go back in time, down your Twitter timeline through thousands of tweets and remove anything that you no longer agree with,
I'm going to say, no, you don't do that. Why? One, it seems like a really big waste of time, and who has the time to do that, quite frankly? And two, it's erasing our lives. It's erasing us as people. As someone who studied anthropology and who has mental health issues and who had a parent with the issues that she had, I've always been very interested by humans, by storytelling. I wrote my thesis on the anthropological significance of fairy tales and how they've been reappropriated into modern visual culture to represent specific archetypes of women. It was a hoot. I loved it. If you want a video of me talking about that stuff, I would love to do that. Seriously, it would make me so happy. So I feel like saying people should go back in time and delete videos and delete tweets and things like that, it's deleting who they are. It's deleting their footprint on the world. If you think about it, it's very sad. There's a saying that says that one day Facebook is going to be a graveyard because there's going to be more people on it who have passed away than there are still using that platform. And it's really sad to think about it that way. But at the same time, there are people who have shared their medical journeys on YouTube and who unfortunately aren't with us anymore. But their content lives on and it helps people. I mean, the day I'm filming this, I just found out Barbara Windsor died. And I'm like, no more Peggy Mitchell, what? But we can go back and look at Barbara Windsor's content and watch EastEnders and watch old TV shows. And there's proof that she lived. And even though we might not be famous people, everything that we say and do is proof that we lived. It's proof of who we are. And in my opinion, if you said something that no longer aligns, if it was recent or if it's something that you really, really remember, then fine. But if you realize that and you tweet out and you say, I no longer believe in X, Y, or Z, that's fine. I think that's fair. Anyway, let's get back to the point. So with Swoop's video, we did see this mix, this kind of divide as to, was it okay to use private messages? And when we look at drama channels, generally it's public information, but, and I'm gonna smoothly transition, but you see, when Swoop said this about Glam and Gore, people were like, using DMs, that seems a bit, that's kind of shady. But when Jessie Smiles did it, that was okay. Was it? I'm just trying to point out here the ridiculousness. We have Tati Westbrook, no receipts, believed 110%. We have Swoop, yeah, believed, but it's not okay that she used private messages. And then we have Jessie Smiles, Alex James, the Gabby Hanna situation, private messages. And even earlier this year, Gabby Hanna and Hello Leash had a conversation that didn't go well. I don't know the truth of it. I watched the Gabby videos. I watched the Hello Leash video. What I do know is that they both kind of tried to beat each other to the punch to have the receipts and to control the narrative. And Gabby showed some of the receipts. She read the receipts, actually. And Hello Leash showed the receipts. But there were certain points where suddenly there wasn't a receipt. And that's normal. That's conversation. You shouldn't have to, as I said at the beginning, you shouldn't have to screenshot every single conversation that you have with someone. But, and this is true from Swoop's video, from Jessie's videos, from Gabby's videos, Hello Leash's videos, any drama channel that uses DMs, any commentary channel, anyone that uses DMs, if you crop messages, the context is lost. And if you are showing receipts and then suddenly you don't have a receipt for something, people are going to notice that suddenly there isn't a receipt there. So what does that mean? And I think that's a really, that again is an interesting point. Because Hello Leash's video, she went through and she explained the whole situation from her perspective. And a lot of people agreed with it. But equally, if Gabby had done exactly the same kind of video, we would have heard a different story. And this is why I feel like receipts are a bizarre thing. They used to be proof of something, but they seem to be becoming less and less convincing, less and less concrete. What if this was Photoshop? What if this was hacked? What if this just is taken out of context? What if there was actually a tone to this message that we're not hearing? What if the entire narrative is being twisted intentionally or unintentionally? What if this person's actually deleted certain messages to make this other person look worse? And it's a bizarre situation, and it makes me question, do receipts still have power? Lastly, I want to bring us back to another situation that happened recently. I don't really know of anyone that spoke about it. So I like Rachel Oates a lot. I'm a big fan. And recently on Twitter, she basically did a sort of am I the asshole type post where she had released her review of Gabby Hanna's new book, Dandelion. And her friend, dear Mr. Atheist, Jimmy, didn't know that Rachel had already uploaded her Gabby Hanna book review. And he's apparently a friend of Gabby's, and he went to Rachel and said, can you maybe try not to be too mean or too hypercritical in your review, because Gabby's really, really stressing out about it. Now, on a side note to that, Gabby sent it to Rachel Oates knowing the type of commentary that Rachel Oates does. So if you don't want someone to review it, don't give it to them. But also, if you're going to release something publicly for the world, and especially if you're going to ask people to pay for it, even if you're not going to ask people to pay for it, frankly, people are allowed to comment and criticize and say what they think. Though I do agree that I think Rachel was particularly harsh in that video, but I don't think she was particularly mean. I just think she was harsh, and it's understandable because I think she felt let down. I like Gabby's songs, and there are some poems of hers and some short stories of hers that I really like. I did consider doing a review of Adultolescence because, as someone with BPD, I am very much like half a child and half an adult, and I think that's the point of Adultolescence. So I know it's old now, but if you want to see that, let me know in the comments so that I know that you'd be interested in that. But it was what it was. Jimmy sent a message to Rachel saying, please don't be too overly critical because Gabby's really stressing out about it. And Rachel thought that he was basically saying, take your video down, it's too critical, but he wasn't. But equally, he inserted himself in a conversation and it blew up and it was a mess. It ended up with Rachel deleting her Twitter. The situation here was that Rachel did an Am I the Arsehole style post because she wanted to know and understand if she had done something wrong in this situation. She didn't say who the message was from, but she did say, Gabby Hanna sent a friend to make me feel bad, basically. And so, dear Mr. Atheist interjected and said, Gabby did not send me. I came of my own volition. I sent this to you because I'm her friend and I'm your friend, and I wanted to just look out for her, basically, or something to that effect. Here's the proof. And it got to an extent where this was clearly having a very big effect on Rachel, but it opened up another interesting debate when it comes to receipts here, because some people were saying that Jimmy shouldn't have said anything to Rachel at all because it's not his business. But personally, I'm predisposed to the idea that if you're looking out for a friend, look out for a friend. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that personally. I would go to bat for my friends, and I don't think that's something that's wrong. I don't think you should have to keep quiet about a situation if you have genuine feelings. But his biggest issue was that she said that Gabby sent him, and a lot of people immediately wanted to believe,
yeah, Gabby did that.
And apparently that wasn't the case. And it exploded with different people having different perspectives, some saying that Jimmy was in the right, some saying Rachel was in the right, some saying Rachel was wrong, some saying that Rachel didn't do anything wrong, others saying that Jimmy did do everything wrong, some saying he did everything right and he's looking out for a friend. And then you have other people saying, well, of course Gabby Hanna did this because she's so manipulative and she's an evil mastermind who wants to kill everybody and make everyone feel like crap and blah 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 blah. And it pulled someone into a conversation that, as far as receipts show, she was never a part of. But for some reason, so many people were very happy and ready to believe that. And so my question really is, do receipts hold power anymore? Yes. Is there any point in them? Yes. What is the situation? Is it fine to show a DM without full context? Yes. Is it okay if you're having a conversation with someone in DMs to screenshot it and send it to someone else? Because you might not expose that piece of information, but someone else might. Because you might send it to someone and they might send it to someone else and they might send it to someone else, and it might start off as a big thing and then someone might crop it down a little bit and then crop it down a bit more and then crop it down a little bit more, and all context is removed and suddenly there's a receipt that means nothing. So yeah, tell me, what's the deal with receipts? For some people, we don't need receipts and we'll believe them. For others, we'll think the worst of them even without receipts. Some people, it's fine to use private messages, such as we saw Jessie Smiles do. And again, I'm not saying that Jessie Smiles was necessarily in the wrong for that video. I'm just discussing the fact that she did show private messages And no one really said that that was a problem, yet in Swoop's video, apparently that's suddenly a problem now. Is this because we are growing and we are learning that receipts can be photoshopped, that receipts can be taken out of context? Is it that we're getting fed up of the idea of receipts, out of the idea that every single thing we do and say on the internet is so closely analyzed that there are people willing to go back through years and years of content just to try and make you look like a bad person for what could potentially have been a really emotional tweet you sent when you were drunk and sad? What's the deal? This is one of these open-ended conversations where I want to open the floor up to you guys and I want to ask what you think, because quite frankly, I find receipts a very confusing thing. If someone can't provide them, many people won't believe the person, but if you do provide them, some people don't like the source. As I said, if it's a private message. What if it's a message that someone else sent you from a conversation with someone? What if the message prior is blacked out? What if suddenly someone's showing loads of receipts and then suddenly they make a point about something else and there is no receipt on the screen? What do you think? I hope this was enjoyable. I hope this was interesting. I hope you understand where I'm coming from, and I would genuinely be really, really interested to hear your thoughts on this, because I have gone round and round in my head about, should I use receipts on my platform? Because I don't feel that we should have to be forced to prove everything we're saying. It's like some people make the assumption that unless you can provide proof, you're a liar. And it makes it very difficult as a content creator and just as a general human being. Like, yeah, I'm a content creator, but as I said, someone going back into your Twitter and being like, "This you," that could happen to anyone. Should we have to delete old comments and videos and tweets that no longer align with our key principles just because our opinions and principles have changed and we've grown? Or should they be able to remain there as proof that we did grow? That once we were so ignorant to believe something, and now you can see the journey, you can see how much this person has learned and changed and grown as a human being. Because that's kind of beautiful, and I don't think we should be erasing that. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. I hope you did enjoy the video. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button. As I said, it really, really helps me out, especially. Please share the video. I would love that. I've had some people ask me if it's okay for them to share my videos. Share my videos, guys. Yes, I would love that. Please comment anything you want to comment below. Please do be polite about it. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree that she who holds the receipts controls the narrative? Let me know. And do follow me on my social medias. I'm Kez Unicorns everywhere because that's easy. And as I said, I've TikToked now. I've TikToked. And please do subscribe. I'm going to try uploading with an upload schedule in 2021. But just in case there's ever any delay or anything, or in case I manage to get an extra bonus video up 1 week, do have the post notifications on so that you'll know as soon as I post a video. Yeah, and thank you very much for sitting here and hanging out with me for the past however long I've been talking. My throat's sore, I've got nothing to drink. Talking for an hour and not having anything to drink is, yeah, it's fun. Anyway, thank you very much to Poppy for being our featured unicorn today. And I want to say a very big arigato gozaimasu. I'll give you a big kiss. And keep on unicorning. Bye! say the receipts. Why did Diane say it? Why did Whitney Houston say it? And while it might not all be about that, and a lot of it might just seem like a bit of YouTube drama, I'm going to share my own personal experiences with receipts, with a certain situation. Today's Anna. This is one of my favourite wigs. It's from Rockstar Wigs. There is a Rockstar Wigs walkthrough video. Anyway, okay, I don't know. It isn't like do you know what religion? And the fact that it happened not even a century ago, with everyone, and it even got to a point where they showed a tweet, where I saw a tweet as a side note that in Twitter you can delete. YouTube is literally saying to smaller YouTubers, people were bending over backwards. I think for that doesn't mean, like, you don't get to 10 years old. Oh, pause here. And recently on Twitter, she released she basically did a sort of "Am I the Asshole?" type post